Despise the school, their fancy uniforms, and remember what got you. Focus on the fundamentals. We've gone over time and time again. And most important, don't get caught up thinking about winning or losing this game. If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game. In my book, we're going to be winners.
This is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show.
This is a second coming. This is a call to arms. Your finest hour won't be wasted.
The New Hampshire High School Hoop Show is brought to you by the New Hampshire State Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement.
Right now, it's not about talent. It's about heart. It's about who can go out there and play the hardest, who can go out there and play the smartest. Now, they've been here before. They're not going to give it to us. We got to go out there and we got to take it.
And now, here are your hosts, Pete Terrier.
But I have a question, though. Those two foul shots at the end of the game, did you miss them? Or did you miss them?
Not exactly a soup question, is it?
And Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com.
All season long, we played our game. Right now, you're playing theirs. When we step on the floor, every second that clock is ticking, we are pedal to the metal. We run the ball. We pressure the ball. And most importantly, we control the tempo of the game.
Well, good morning and welcome to another edition of the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show each and every Saturday morning between 7 and 9 a.m. WGIR AM 610 in and around Manchester. Also a Seacoast signal for you. 96.7 The Wave. Pete Terrier along with Dave Haley. Dave, we're getting closer and closer to Christmas morning, and I know with a 6-year-old daughter, you got to be really excited about that.
She's ready to go. Kindle fire.
I said you got to be really excited about that.
No, I just don't want to blow it. I'm worried that I'm going to put the same wrapping paper on the gifts from Daddy and the gifts from Santa Claus, and she's going to catch on. But she's 6. I think she's going to rip it off so quick she won't notice.
So you said Kindle?
Yeah.
I mean, what if she's listening to the show? What if she's going on your website, nhsportspage.com, and she's watching the video cast of the show, and you spoil the surprise for her?
She goes to Polly Pocket websites and Barbie games. That's what she does online. She's not listening to Daddy's show. She's not a
P1 listener, as they say in the business, no?
No, she's awake. I doubt she's listening, though.
Not a rabid high school fan.
She knows what happened last night.
Well, there was a light night around the state of New Hampshire. A lot of games played on Thursday this week, especially in Division 1. There were some games, a game that I was at, also a game that you were at, both of them good games, although I have no idea what happened in your game because I was not following you on Twitter. I was at Souhegan High School, and that's a dead zone as far as cells. Maybe it's just in the high school.
Yeah, it is a dead zone. And I was thinking to myself, wow, Souhegan might be 0-3, but they came back.
They pulled it out. We'll get to the details on that as well as the full scoreboard from Dave Haley. Just to let you know about the guests we have coming up on the show this morning, Nate Mazerol, head coach of the Nashua South Purple Panthers, the school where I once played on the Belanger court, although not in a Purple Panthers uniform. I couldn't make the team. I was cut by George Nukas. And
now's your chance to rail on the air.
I've already railed him. He was coaching as an assistant under Dave Morissette at Riviere College. And a few years ago, I used to do some Riviere play-by-play. And I went up to Nuke and I said, "Hey, Nuke, I just want to let you know, thanks for cutting me, back in 1988 or whatever it was. It was probably 87 for when tryouts were my senior year." And he's like, "I remember you." And I said, "I went on to star at the CYO level at St. Louis de Gonzague Parish in Nashua, averaging about 30 a game." Yeah.
When I was a freshman at Guilford, we had kids from Gilmanton come over to our school. They all go to Guilford High School, so we didn't go to middle school with those kids. And there was a kid who tried out in like a top hat, like literally literally like a Mr. Peanut top hat. Like he had like a black hat on, and he would not take it off. He didn't make the team. But he had a top hat on, and he
wouldn't have even made the layup line if I was coaching.
And the worst is I remember it was 3 days of tryouts for it's just a cattle call, and after day 1 they only cut one kid,
and they
said it over morning announcements, and then they were like, "Have a nice day." Just one kid got
cut. They cut you over the morning announcements?
Yeah.
They don't just name the team?
No, it wasn't named yet. He was the only kid.
Whoever didn't make it just doesn't get named. They name the kid who didn't make it?
John Gullidge.
John Top Hat College.
No, he wasn't wearing the kid with the top hat. Didn't get
All
cut
right,
the
sorry.
first day.
Well, you had me at Top
amazing.
Hat.
That's the most amazing part of the story.
You had me at Top Hat. I know Adam Furious, our producer, he pulled the mic to his face, which must mean either one thing, he's got to scratch an itch, or he's got something to say.
Never mind.
I've seen him wear a couple of hats, though.
Oh, yeah.
Fedora style.
Hey, I have some very interesting and eclectic hats. Thank you very much.
Kango.
Eclectic.
I love my Kangol hat.
Well, one of these days, John Kesty, our videographer here from nhsportspage.com, will focus in a little of the Furious flavor in the other room, because I know we talk about him. He does scare some small children. Trust me.
No, yeah.
He does.
Oh, yeah. I know. Your kids are like,
get a little bit of the
deathly
flavor.
afraid of me. It's kind of funny.
Not as much afraid of you as the guy, the scary guy with the toothpick in his mouth, a.k.a. Scorch from Rock 101.
Wow.
All right. Enough about Top Hats and Adam Furious and all that stuff. Nate Maswell, as I said, joining us at the bottom of the hour, 7:35. Talk about that Chick-fil-A Holiday Classic, which is an awesome Christmas tournament.
Yeah.
I love Christmas tournaments. That thing gets underway on Thursday. You got the Queen City Invitational, which gets underway on Wednesday, the day after Christmas. Very much looking forward to that. And I'm very much looking forward to our guest about an hour and a half from now or so. Lauren Lucas, Somersworth basketball coach. He will join us. Friend of Dave Haley, a friend of the website, nhsportspage.com, and now becomes a friend of the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. So I'm looking forward to talking a little Somersworth hoops, talk about my boy Greg Kretschmar's son, Tyler Kretschmar.
Yeah, starts at center.
He's a big starting center for them. Let's see if he'll agree that he's a football player playing basketball.
He's a banger. He does his job out there. He rebounds and sets screens, and yeah.
Is he Greg Kite?
Yeah.
He's Greg Kite.
Greg Kite. And right now, if he was listening, he'd be Googling Greg Kite to figure out who that is. His dad knows, though.
Was Billy Paltz a Notre Dame guy?
No, Billy Paltz was not a Notre Dame guy.
Is he Billy Paltz, though?
Bill Lambier was a Notre Dame guy, which I'm embarrassed to say.
He was.
Yeah, Billy Paltz could shoot, man.
He could?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about Somersworth hoop. Great game between Somersworth and Campbell, and we'll get you the score of that. Lauren Lucas coming up at 8:25 this morning. Before we get into it, why don't we roll with the scoreboard? It is brought to you by our friends at the New Hampshire State Liquor Commission Division of Enforcement and their Buyers Beware program, reminding all adults it's against the law to provide alcohol to minors, especially during this holiday season. A lot of holiday parties going on, New Year's Eve celebrations. This is the time of year that they want to make you aware. Don't do it, guys. Here's the scoreboard with Dave Haley.
Well, light night, as Pete mentioned. Only one game in Division I last night. Manchester Memorial with a 60-53 win over Timberlane. So Memorial now starts off 3-0 on the season. Big game in Division II last night. Lebanon was 2-0 coming in, but they were beaten by the Pythons of Pelham High School, 58-46. Jake Vacnoris had 18 for Pelham, and they've got a freshman by the name of Keith Brown, who's the real deal. He had 11. So good win for Pelham. Other big game last night was Pembroke beating defending champion Portsmouth. That game was in Portsmouth, 76-59. Patrick Welts, 36 points, 23 in the first half, and he is now averaging 31.3 points per game.
And what did Alosa tell us last week on the phone? We had Matt on, and he's got the all-time scoring mark at New Hampshire High School for four-year players.
Yeah.
25-75. So he said Welch needs to average about 34, 35 points a game over the rest of his high school career.
And play in the playoffs deep.
Yeah, play deep in the which they probably should if he averages
they
that.
They should.
He might have a chance to break that scoring record.
Yeah, it's quite a climb, but he's off to an incredible start over there. Souhegan at the game that you and John Kesty covered last night. Souhegan 74-65 over Goffstown. We have video of that game on New Hampshire Sports Page. Other games just kind of spread out a couple. Conant with a 63-46 win over Hopkinton. Dave Chase's Hopkinton stuck with him for a bit, but Conant is... I honestly think Conant would be top 3 in Division II. I think they're that good. And a game that I covered last night, Campbell with a 54-47 win over Somersworth. We'll talk about that. And the game of the night, the game that everybody's listening to as the volume gets turned up in every car in New Hampshire, The Golden Eagles at Guilford are 4-0.
Wow. First time since Dave Haley was a senior?
I think so. Well, they were good a few years ago. 62-49 over Newfound. Guilford is 4-0. Let us rejoice.
And that's like a battle of that lake right there, right?
Yeah, the Lakes Region teams are not very good. So Guilford, I think Belmont could be solid. And they stuck last night with Prospect Mountain. I've got a score on that one too. Hold on, let me get Prospect Mountain score for you too. I'm hustling here. Last night, Prospect Mountain with a 60-53 win over Belmont to get back on track. Prospect Mountain lost on Tuesday night to Somersworth. So a lot of D3 games last night. Division 4 and Division 1 mostly played on Thursday night.
And that Memorial Timberlane game, 60-53, you said Memorial's been pretty much impressive over their first few games in the Jack Quirk Part 2 era at Manchester Memorial High School, but kind of a squeaker last night. I mean, you can look at final scores and you can't really tell what actually happened in the game, but that was a 7-point game. A little bit surprising to me. I figured that they would beat up on Timberlane more so than they did.
It was at Timberlane, but looking at Memorial's schedule. Beat Londonderry on the road in the opener by 10, which I think is a very good win. Beat Salem by 22 at home, which was very impressive. They play Dover after the break. They're going to play Dover on the road, which will be tough. They play Concord at home, which they should win. Then they play BG and Bedford, and then it gets really hard for them after that. That's when they start playing the Trinities, the Manchester Centrals, and so forth and so on. But that's a team that a lot of people have eyes on, is Manchester Memorial, because talent-wise, they're as good as any team in the state.
Yeah, they got a loaded deck, so to speak, and let's see if they can keep it together and keep winning basketball games. We'll take a quick time out, come back. I want to get into some of the games that took place on Thursday night, because you don't get a lot of attention to those. It's a non-traditional night for high school basketball, usually that Tuesday-Friday situation. A lot of games played on Thursday. I want to kind of look at some of those games and kind of take a look at the landscape around the state of New Hampshire high school basketball. And then at 7:35, Nate Mazerol from Nashua South, the head coach of the 3-0 Panthers, getting set to host the Chick-fil-A Holiday Classic. Tremendous Christmas tournament coming up actually Thursday, Friday, Saturday after the holiday down in Nashua. I saw one of the teams that's going to be playing in that tournament last night, the Souhegan Sabres. Interesting first-round matchup of that tournament against Alver, and that's actually the opening game of that Chick-fil-A tournament. That should be real good. I've seen both of those teams play so far this year, so should be an interesting matchup. Your boy Alex Yosh,
yeah, my boy,
going up against Souhegan and Coach Mike Heaney.
That's right.
Take a quick time out, come back, and get into some Thursday action on the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show, WGIR AM 610 and 96.7. If that doesn't get you into the holiday spirit, a little Run DMC.
All Queens.
That's good stuff right there. Adam Furious, our producer, spinning it on the ones and twos this morning on our show just a few days before Christmas. Pete Terrier, along with Dave Haley, nhsportspage.com. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. About 15 minutes from now, we'll have Nate Mazerol, head coach of the Nashua South basketball team. His Panthers 3-0, including a victory the other night against Concord, 66-41. The Preston brothers doing the job. Dave Dunham doing the job for those guys. They've looked very good so far this year.
As good as advertised.
I think their big win, obviously, the most impressive win was the win against Winnicott when they blew them out 80-55 earlier this week.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a 7-point game at halftime, and then they blew them out in the third quarter. And this team will get better, I think, as the season goes on. And 3-0 is a nice start for them. And winning by 25 on the road at Concord is. It was funny. He said that to me when I talked to him. When I talked to Coach in the preseason, he made a comment about, this group, they've got to bring it on Tuesday nights when there are 18 kids in the stand, people in the stands, you know what I mean? And that was an example of a game at Concord early in the season on, like you said, a different sort of night, and to go out and win by 25, that's a good win.
You know what else is a good win? Bedford beating up on Merrimack 62-42.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's going to say that this Merrimack team is, anywhere close to the team that won the championship last year with Dimitri Flores and Tyler Gendron and some of the other players that have now graduated, or in Flores' case, transferred out to prep school.
Yep.
But Bedford wins by 20 at Merrimack on the night where Merrimack honored their championship season, a little ceremony before the game. When we were doing the Turkey Bowl game on WGIR AM, We talked to James Caparell, the Bedford quarterback, and also is a guard for that Bedford basketball team.
Yep.
He told us a name, Taylor Grandy, who I saw last year, kind of a spark plug type player, little guy, had a huge night, 26 points, career high in that win over Merrimack. And everybody you talk to that has seen Bedford play so far, and even though they lost to BG on opening night, everybody says Bedford's going to be a team to be reckoned with in D1.
Well, yeah, and as I think I said, well, first of all, Taylor worked really hard with Brett Sellingham and Will Flowers and those guys over at BST. Brett's been talking about him and Sam Thomas, that big guy, how much work they've done. So, it gets, championships can really be won in the summer. But Bedford, we talked about it, I think, on air last week. First of all, Mike Fitzpatrick, who you and I both believe is one of the top handful of coaches in New Hampshire. And they've only been with him for a few weeks. I mean, if you remember at halftime when we were talking to James, he hadn't even met Fitzy yet. He said, well, yeah, we're supposed to meet with him tomorrow. So this wasn't, he didn't run their summer league. He was at Memorial this summer, and what happened this summer is pretty much why he left Memorial. But, he wasn't with these kids until recently, so they're going to get better and better and better. I think he's an excellent coach, and they've got talent. I mean, listen, Bedford, I talked to Kurt Hines in the preseason about football, and I said, "You're going D1," and he said, "Yeah, we got enough athletes. We're good. Not woe was me. They're ready to move, and they're a Division I program. I think they'll be a factor." That's a 20-point win on the road at Merrimack.
That's impressive. BG, who has been impressive in the early going, a 1-point squeaker against Exeter, 48-47. Exeter is that team that just makes you play ugly. That style that Jeff Holmes has. They obviously are missing a lot with Matt Barr. I mean, he was poised to have
That's what they're missing,
an outstanding senior season.
Yeah.
They've got some size. They always do in Exeter.
Max Medley,
They've got good guards. Exeter always does.
Tyler Russ.
The fact is, though, they don't have the firepower offensively that Barr, that's a 25-point-a-game guy that they're missing.
Yeah, and you say, Jeff is a very smart coach, Jeff Holmes, so he's winning any way he can win. I'm sure he'd love to score 70 points and run up and down the floor. He's one of the, if you remember him as a player, if you've heard of him, he's just a legendary shooter.
Didn't he go to Keene?
He went to Keene High School, and they went to the championship, and then he played at University of Maine. I think there's some story out there that he hit 7 threes against Michigan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, something like that. It might have been 8.
Well, when we get him on the show, you can bring that up to him.
Oh, I'm sure he loves talking about himself. Yeah.
Yeah, he is a humble guy.
Yeah, he is.
And I'm
nice
sure
guy.
he would deflect that question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Another nice win, Central beating Dover 61-53. Brett Hansen, 18 points. Dawson Dixon, 15. Pelletier only had 5. I don't know. I'm wondering, Romps knows that personnel well. I'm wondering, like the Alvin game that you covered, if they, if people are putting boxing ones on Troy Pelletier right now.
Well, the fact is,
it's not working.
It's working in terms of keeping him under control, but you're not controlling the other guys. And that's the problem with Central. They just got too many guys. I mean, Hansen is sophomore, and we kind of joked about it. The kid doesn't look like a whole lot when you're just seeing him face to face, but he can score in a variety of different ways. It's not like he's out there draining threes and he needs open looks to score. He can take it to you into the paint, and he can score in a variety of different moves. Look, I'm going to make this comparison. I'm not saying he looks like him or he plays like him, but Kevin McHale could score in a lot of different ways. Had a lot of fakes and a lot of moves, shot from a lot of different angles. This kid, Brett Hansen, is 6 foot, about 100 pounds or whatever, soaking wet. And McHale was 6'11" with unbelievable arms, unbelievable reach. But this kid scores in that type of way where he just doesn't have the same, you talk about Patrick Welch, the quick release, the kid from Pembroke. Yeah. And this kid, Brett Hansen, he's very unorthodox. And that's why I make the Kevin McHale comparison in terms of, the arsenal that he has.
Yeah, no, I agree. And they're, these guys they're basically saying early on, we're going to make Dawson Dixon and Brett Hansen beat us from the outside, and they are. And Central's 3-0. They're the favorites, but they haven't played with Mike Pletzis. Hasn't played yet because of a hand injury. He hopefully will be back soon because I know it's not a long-term injury. And it's not looking good on the Isaiah Joseph front. I read that article in the Union Leader the other day. Pat Corbin, didn't say yay or nay on it, but he said, I need to have a pretty good reason why he needs a 5th year of eligibility. So they're winning without 2 starters. Now, they may not ever get Joseph back this year, but Mike Plessis, I know, Doc loves that kid. He raves about him, and he said he's probably his smartest player out there. So it's impressive. You know, they're missing a couple kids. This isn't the full arsenal, and they're 3-0. I think they're the best team in the state.
If they could get Joseph back, that would just give them another big. You know, they're a little bit thin in that department. I mean, with Pelletier is really their only big player.
Right.
They got Macris coming off the bench, the kid Colin Duffley, but, you know, we're talking 6'2", 6'3" with those kids. Pelletier is 6'4", 6'5", but he's a wing player.
Right.
And will be for sure at the next level if he plays basketball, although he probably has a better shot as a football player. I don't know.
Better as a basketball player.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to get into Spalding. Impressive win on the road at Londonderry. I mean, that's not an easy place to play. A lot of people say that about Spalding, having to go to Rochester, but I don't think Londonderry is an easy place to play either.
No, and that's the second game Londonderry's lost at home pretty big this early in the season, which is a bit of a surprise. But Spalding's off to a nice start. Dominic Parody is playing great in his 7th year of action at Spalding High School.
He got the extra couple of years of eligibility. Why can't Isaiah Joseph?
Snuck right under the right through the system there. But no, Spalding's off to a nice start. I think, you know, they beat Keene. I think they beat Timberlane, and now Londonderry. Not a murderer's row in December by any means, but they lost to Keene early last season, and I believe they might have lost another game. You got to win these games. I mean, they add up at the end, and you just got to go out and win them. And that's a very good little Christmas tournament. You mentioned Christmas tournaments. Spalding plays in that one with Portsmouth, Winnicott, Oyster River. It's a good. There's a couple of main teams, I think. It's a pretty good Christmas tournament that they'll be in this year. Portsmouth beat Spalding last year in the championship.
Yeah, which I remember talking about that. Yeah, 2 Final Four teams, and obviously the Spalding story with the accident on the bus last year on the way to the playoff
beaters. That was unbelievable.
I was going to that game. It was Spalding against Nashua North, and it was at Nashua North. North, I think, was the 4 seed in the tournament. Ryan Gauthier and Javon Williams' team. Jake Mellon. They had a bunch of seniors on that team. Mike O'Connell, I think, was the other kid.
Farmer was on it.
Yep. And I remember driving to that game, and I was getting there, and I was listening to a different radio show, and Tom King actually, was on the phone, and he said, "Yep, this game's been canceled. There was an accident with that Spalding bus," and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I hope everything's okay." And they ended up sending, Connor No to the hospital.
Yeah.
And he came back and played, a couple of days later, and made some big shots. I think he came into the game off the bench. He didn't start the game, and he nailed like his first few shots. It was one of those real emotional stories.
Wasn't there a big technical foul in that game late on North?
I think I think so, and I don't I don't remember the exact situation. I know Gauthier had a terrible game. It was his final game in high school, and he didn't play well at all, and he couldn't hit any shots until the end of the game. So I think it was a technical on Mellon, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a great call. I mean, it was definitely an emotional technical.
I think it was controversial, yeah.
But it was just the timing that was not good for Nashua North, and ended up, leading to them losing that game against Spalding. All right, we'll take a timeout, come back, and we'll talk to the head coach of Nashua South, Nate Mazerol, as they get set for the Chick-fil-A holiday tournament coming up. Tremendous event. And you got to love Chick-fil-A sandwiches. There's not many around here, but there is one in the food court at the Pheasant Lane Mall. And anytime I make the trip down there, I got to stop by and get me some Chick-fil-A, because that's one damn tasty sandwich. And I bring my sons to the game, and he loves those Chick-fil-A cows. Eat more chicken. You've seen the signs. We'll come back with Nate Mazerol after this on the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show, WGIR AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave. Back here on the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. We do it each and every Saturday morning during the season between 7 and 9 a.m. on 2 fine stations. One of them, WGIR AM 610, in and around Manchester, Nashua, Concord. Also got a Seacoast signal for you, 96.7 FM. That's WQSO The Wave. Pete Terrier, along with Dave Haley of NHSportsPage.com. Joining us on the phone right now, head coach of my old high school team, the Nashua South Purple Panthers, years, although back when we went there, Coach, it was just Nashua High School, but you're getting used to this Nashua South thing. You've been doing it for almost 10 years at Nashua South now, Coach. How are you this morning?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Did it take you a while to get used to that, the north-south split, or did it something that just kind of happened naturally for you?
No, it still doesn't seem quite the right way, I guess. I mean, don't get me wrong, love Nashua South, but for instance, anytime I write the names in the scorebook, I still just put Nashua up there.
Coach, we talked in the preseason, and you guys were ranked pretty high as far as preseason predictions and so forth. You look at how you've started the season, and you beat Keene by 6 at home, and then a team that's expected to be towards the bottom of the standings, and then you beat Winnicott by 25, a team that's expected to be near the top or in the top half with you guys. Is that kind of how it works early in the season, where everyone's still kind of coming together, you're still trying to find a rhythm as a group, and you sort of one night you're just going to have it more than another? Is that sort of how you try to get through this first month?
Absolutely. It's just, you never know what's going to happen early on. With all the preseason rankings, no offense to any pundits or whatnot, but those, I think those are really tough to determine. With I know with summer leagues and fall leagues and kids who are coming back from the previous year, just with high school kids, so many things can change. So those early games, it is just trying to get a rhythm and get a sense of identity for each team. So, for instance, talking to Coach McKenna after the game against Winnicott, I told him I fully expect to see right up at the top of the end of the season. They're going to be very good. He does such a great job, and he has so many kids who can play. It's just one of those nights where we played well, they had an off night. I mean, it really wasn't a 25-point game. It is early, and I don't, as I've told my kids several times, let's not get ahead of ourselves. 3 games into the season, we haven't even come to Christmas yet. If we're still playing like this in late February, then we'll really be onto something.
Nate Mazerow, head coach of the Nashua South Panthers. They're off to a 3-0 start in Division I, getting set to play host to the Chick-fil-A Holiday Basketball Tournament. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, but I want to get to the Preston brothers. It's kind of nice having brothers playing together on the same high school team. I mean, they grew up playing with each other, and you had a couple of sets of brothers last year. You had the Dunham brothers and the Preston brothers. Now one of the Dunhams has graduated, but you still got Tim, the point guard, and you got Jack Preston, the big man. Talk about how those guys have really grown together over the past couple of seasons playing in your system.
Well, it is. You're right. It's great having them together, and it's funny because you often think brothers, this could be a problem on occasion, or they're always going to be at each other, and there's going to be they're going to be fighting this, that, and the other. And every once in a while, I'll jokingly say, "Hey, keep it up," and I'm going to tell Mom or something like that. But for the most part, it is true. They've played together so long, and for many of these kids, they've played together so long. Travel teams, Biddy, CYO, middle school teams, we do have a nice chemistry early, and I think that's helped us early on. But at the core are the Preston brothers, certainly, and they're both playing extremely well. Even this early on in the season, at least in terms of scoring, one night Jack has a big night, and then, for instance, at Concord, Jack struggled a little early and then had a nice second half, had 15 points, which is great, but Tim has 21, 22, whatever it was. And it's nice to know you have 2 guys you can rely on any given night to score, along with David Dunham, who, I mean, we played very well against Concord. He had, I think, 21 and 24 in the first 2 games, and then against Concord, he only had 4. Played well, played a nice 4-game, rebounded well. But when you have all of those guys in the mix, plus kids like Danny Ogier and Trevor Knight, who just defend so well and do all the tough, gritty things, it's really a nice mix. But at the core, again, the Prestons really do kind of lead the show in terms of our scoring and what we need to do offensively.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. It was talking about Danny Ogier and Trevor Knight. I remember you telling me that you thought Trevor could be the lockdown defender for you guys. So yeah, just I want to hear even more about, because it does seem like you have like a really nice balance there, and you have to be very appreciative of Mr. Preston to give you a center and a point guard. That's fantastic from the same gene pool.
A perfect situation. Yes, but with Trevor and Danny, they realize anything they get offensively is going to be off a turnover or maybe a follow-up rebound. We have a bunch of sets, certainly. We have our core offenses and then a few sets or wrinkles off of them. And pretty much everything goes through Jack. We want everything in the post. He can dominate in the post, and that's what we're looking to do. Certainly some sets for David Dunham coming off down screens and hitting threes, which he's been doing so well, and a few sets where Timmy just takes to the basket. So, having said that, Danny, Trevor, there aren't sets for them, but in the last couple games, I think Trevor's had 11 points against Winnacunnet and 9 at Concord, and it's just he steals the ball, he goes down and scores. So exactly what you'd want him to do. But those two are as valuable to us as anyone else because, I mean, there was a point in the second half against Concord where it was still in doubt a little bit. It was close, and we took a bad shot, and Danny Ogier, as I will tell anyone, pound for pound, toughest kid on the floor any given night, goes up against a kid who's probably 6 inches taller, gets off the ground, rips this great offensive rebound, and we maintain a possession. Those things are going to win us some tough ball games.
Nate Mazarol, head coach of Nashua South, his team off to a tremendous start in Division I. You got the Holiday Classic, the Chick-fil-A Holiday Basketball Tournament, annual event that rotates from year to year between your school, Nashua South, and the Belanger Gym, and Nashua North High School. This year it's at your place, Coach. It starts on Thursday. I like the local flavor to this. I mean, it's fun seeing a team like Thornton Academy out of Saco, Maine, and they got a kid I think who's playing for Bentley now, the Shaw kid, I believe, and he's playing minutes for those guys and contributing. It's been good seeing him over the last couple of years. That team from Staten Island, New York, New Dorp, who I don't know if they were in it last year, but I know that was an area that was devastated by Hurricane Sandy just recently, but they're not back this year. But you do have Sauhegan in there. They're playing Alvern in the first game of the tournament on Thursday at 3. You got Campbell High School, who's been in this tournament for the past few years. Milford's a newcomer to this tournament. That's who you will play in your first game on Thursday night at 6 o'clock. And then Hollis Brookline going to take on North. I like the local flavor to it. I've always been more partial to the Queen City Invitational because I can go to that tournament and I can see all these New Hampshire teams in one sitting, basically. But I think you guys have brought some of that in, and I think that's going to bring additional excitement.
Absolutely. Kevin Flynn, who's been running the tournament for 6 or 7 years now, does such a tremendous job. As I say every year, it's not a tournament, it's an event. If you come and there's always something going on. It seems like it's some professional tournament. It's just a great place to be over the holidays. And you're right, the local flair certainly adds to that. Quite frankly, it's a fundraiser. And with the local teams, we get more fans, and it does add more excitement. So when we first envisioned this years ago, when we started coming back to this from the old days of Cambridge, Original Latin, Holy Name, Wilbur Cross, we envisioned having a couple local teams, some teams from out of state that might garner some interest, and that was nice. But Kevin, being the business guy and running the tournament, said, hey, let's get more local teams in here. It'll help the cause, and it certainly has. And it is nice, especially when you get some teams that are not in the same division, because as you guys know as well as anyone, yes, Division I is supposedly the premier division just because of the size of schools. But if you look at, say, a Pembroke Academy over the last couple of years, or a Portsmouth, or Milford a couple of years ago, most people would say they may have been the best team in the state. So sometimes when you cross those division lines, you're going to still see some very good games, and it's nice to do that in such a setting.
Yeah, and Hollis Brookline is that Pete just mentioned. I forgot they're one of the top teams. They're now 3-0 in Division II, and Sauhegan's 1-2, but they're a lot better than that. They've played 3 very good teams, and I remember the big story a couple of years ago was Campbell. I think it was 3 years ago. They were the story. They ended up going all the way to the finals.
The Josh Morgan team.
Yeah, and again, as you said, Coach, I mean that's what people like to see because they're going to see South and North during the season, and so when I hear that's how Hegan's going to play Alvern. I mean, that's a great matchup to have, and you know, you get to see these and those games end up being pretty good. And to see Campbell go out there and play, and I think it's great when you have that many quality teams, because Hollis Brookline has been down in past years. They're not anymore. You know what I mean? And Sauhegan was down a few years back. Mike Heaney's done a great job building that program back up. But for the people of Nashua, it's fantastic to have that many good teams right in that area.
And it can often be, as you said, kind of a jumping off point for teams. I think teams go into that, and if you play well and succeed in the tournament, it just boosts you on when you get back to those regular season games, especially for a team like Campbell, who comes in and plays against the bigger teams. And if you succeed, that only gives you so much more confidence going into those next regular season games. So I think there's that added benefit there. But the local game you might not see. We've always, I mean, the Alvern-Campbell matchups we've had over the last couple of years, kind of a little mini rivalry that you don't get to see in the regular season, or a Hollis Brookline in one of the Nashua schools along the same line. So I do believe the fans like to see that.
Coach, I know you'd mentioned the Milford thing when they were, you know, perhaps the best team in the entire state a couple of years ago. They went back-to-back championships, undefeated the second year. I know that there was talk about getting that team in the tournament during those years. It didn't work out. I think they were playing a tournament in Keene. I also heard about the potential to get Conant in the tournament. Do you recall any negotiations with Conant trying to get them to come? Because I think that's a team that not a lot of people around this area, Manchester, Nashua, Concord. I know Dave Haley is all about Conant and D3 in the small schools, but some Division I, Division II snobs like myself, we don't get to see them as often, and it would be really cool to get those guys into play because they're always good every single year.
Because of Kevin Flynn, because of what the tournament has become, either myself or Kevin, we get phone calls all the time from schools. Hey, if you ever have an opening, we scrimmage Fitchburg every year. Hey, if you ever have an opening. I have a friend who coaches in Maine. Hey, if you ever have an opening. Our waiting list is pretty long, and I know we really did want to get Milford in a couple years ago. It's just they were committed, fully understood that, because I think it would have been a steal for us to have that really good team. People would love to come see them. And I know Conant has been on the radar, but unfortunately, again, Kevin, and this is not unfortunately, this is a good thing, he's loyal. If you come to our tournament, you got a spot as long as you want it, because we've had, unfortunately, a couple teams that committed and then bailed last minute, and then we had to scramble to get an eighth team. In fact, one year we had 7 teams, and that just doesn't work out. So the teams that are in, they stay in, and quite frankly, the way it's run, no one wants to leave. It's local. It's in let's be honest, the 2 gyms in Nashua, we are spoiled. They are beautiful, beautiful basketball facilities. So getting to play on a big court, because I just told my kids the other day, we went to Concord, and some of my new players said, Coach, this court's small. I said, guys, we play on a college court. And one of the reasons we do that is, and it hasn't worked out for us lately, but eventually we're going to hopefully get to play at Durham one of these years, and that court won't seem big because it's the same size, and we'll have a distinct advantage. So teams getting to come in knowing that they may play on a bigger court in the tournament, that's just another added bonus. So we have 8 teams, and I think those 8 teams are pretty much a lock for a while because no one wants to leave.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to it. I will see you on Thursday afternoon, and best of luck in the tournament. Best of luck the rest of the way, and go Nashua. As a Nashua guy, you got to love to see the Panthers playing so well. Thanks for joining us, Coach.
Thank you, guys, and Merry Christmas.
All right, Merry Christmas to you. We got to take a quick timeout, come back. I want to get into the flavor of this tournament a little bit, because I'll say where Nashua does it right and where Manchester could use a little extra help. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. WGIR AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave. I'm telling you, if you haven't caught on yet and started watching the video cast of this show on NHSportsPage.com,
I got busted doing drums.
That's my favorite part, Dave. When I'm watching the show, and I usually watch it like Sundays, when I'm doing laundry in my basement. I got the iPad downstairs. I got the little earbuds in, and I got us cranked up to a good 10. And my favorite part of the entire video cast is you nailing the drums on a song like She's Only 17 from Winger.
That's right. Now they sing in concert, She's Only 35. They do.
They upgrade, do they really?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they really do. He gets the joke, I think. Well, Kip Winger's like 40. He can't say she's only 17.
That's awesome.
He can get arrested. They'll haul him off to jail for that.
Before the break, I talked about some of the things that I really like. Well, I kind of teased about it, I guess. The Chick-fil-A Holiday Basketball Tournament in Nashua. And Nate Mazerol talked to us about this. The atmosphere, it's an event, I think is what he said. It's not like a basketball tournament, it's an event. They got a lot of stuff going on, and I talked a little bit about the cows and stuff like that, and the mascot games. Music. What do you know? You go to these games and you hear cranking music, except at the Queen City Invitational. They do none of that. And John, you can attest to that. You go to these games, these Queen City Invitational games, there's no atmosphere there. There's great atmosphere in terms of the crowd, because those Manchester schools, when they play each other,
right,
those student sections are gonna be there, and they're gonna bring it. There's atmosphere in that sense. But there's no like party atmosphere like there is in the Chick-fil-A Holiday Basketball Tournament, and I think a lot of it has to do with music. And I've talked about this before. Liven it up a little bit, because it gets kind of boring after when you're watching. It might be Merrimack against Exeter or whatever. Yeah. There's no atmosphere whatsoever. And then when you get Memorial going up against Central, or Trinity going up against Memorial, or whatever, even West. I mean, West, their program is down, but still when West comes and plays a Manchester school, there's a lot of excitement there. But get some more stuff going on. Have somebody announce the games. They don't have any PA announcer. This guy, Kevin Flynn, that runs the Chick-fil-A tournament, he does all the PA announcing for every single game. So every basket that was scored. The foul was on whoever. Manchester doesn't do it. And they've been doing, there's this big story in today's Union Leader by Jim Fennell, the City Sports column, and it talks about the history of the QCBIT or IBT, whatever, Queen City Invitational Basketball Tournament. And I think one thing that this tradition, there is a lot of tradition there, and it's a great tournament. And I love going and getting that program and seeing like the all-time leading scorers and things like that. A friend of mine, Chris Snyder, who played at Central, many years ago.
I play against Chris Snyder.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
You did? Well, he's still on the list. So every year after the tournament, I'll text him and say, "Yep, you're still on that list." He hasn't been moved off yet. But I think they need to improve the atmosphere.
I think I have your answer.
What's that?
I think. How do I say this? There's probably some older people that are running the tournament who have been doing it the same way, and they don't want to change the way they do it. You talk about Nashua, the way they do it. What it is for me, being afar and trying to get as much information, because I write a holiday column every year where I summarize all the tournaments and my thoughts and so forth. Who does a fantastic job of getting box scores out immediately and really doing great?
The Nashua tournament?
They do the Keene tournament, because it's the Keene State College, and they have it right on there. Like the college, they'll literally, you can have the play-by-play. They'll say, I remember when Milford played a team from Rhode Island, and they beat them, and they had play-by-play the entire game, and you could follow it. But yeah, no, I agree. That's my guess is why Manchester. I agree with everything you said.
And who knows? Maybe we'll show up there next week, because that tournament gets underway the day after Christmas. The Nashua tournament, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The Manchester tournament is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I love the fact that I can kind of go to a game, go to a bunch of games on Wednesday, go to a bunch of games on Thursday. And good thing about the Nashua tournament this year, the championship day is Saturday. Those games start at noon on Saturday.
Yeah.
They're not like night games.
I'll probably be at that. I got to work. So.
The championship game is 4:30 in the afternoon on Saturday, which is great. All right, that's all the time we have in the first hour. We got another hour to go. Lauren Lucas, head coach of the Somersworth Hoop team, will join us 8:25 this morning. His team, tough luck loss at home last night against Campbell. The Cougars are for real. You'll see them in that Chick-fil-A holiday tournament next week down in Nashua. Another hour to go. On the other side at 8 o'clock, it's the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show.
The size of the school, their fancy uniforms, and remember what got you. Focus on the fundamentals. We've gone over time and time again. And most important, Don't get caught up thinking about winning or losing this game. If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game. In my book, we're going to be winners.
This is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show.
This is a second coming. This is a call to arms. Your finest hour won't be wasted.
The New Hampshire High School Hoop Show is brought to you by the New Hampshire State Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement.
Right now, it's not about talent, it's about heart. It's about who can go out there and play the hardest, who can go out there and play the smartest. Now, they've been here before. They're not going to give it to us. We got to go out there and we got to take it.
And now, here are your hosts, Pete Terrier.
But I have a question, though. Those 2 foul shots at the end of the game, did you miss them? Or did you miss them?
Not exactly a soup question, is it?
And Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com.
All season long, we played our game. Right now, you're playing theirs. When we step on the floor, every second that clock is ticking, we are pedal to the metal. We run the ball. We pressure the ball. And most importantly, we control the tempo of the game.
It is our second hour of the program on this, just a couple of days before the Christmas holiday. Pete Terrier, along with Dave Haley, NHSportsPage.com, here for another hour of the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. We do it to you on Saturday morning, 7 to 9 a.m. on 2 fine stations here in the Granite State, WGIR AM 610 in Manchester, where the show is broadcasted from each and every week. Also have a Seacoast sister station, if you will, 96.7 The Wave. Also can catch the video cast of the show on NHSportsPage.com. John Kesty, he's got a new toy. He got himself an early Christmas present, Dave. A spiffy new camera. And it, you know, the beauty of this camera, it even makes us look good early on a Saturday morning.
No.
Not saying something.
I'm not so sure about that.
Want to thank our guest earlier in the first portion of the show, Nate Mazerall, head coach of the Nashua South Panthers. His team 3-0 on the young season, and South hosting the Chick-fil-A Holiday Basketball Tournament coming up next week, Thursday through Saturday at the Belanger Gym on the campus of Nashua South. Coming up later this hour, Lauren Lucas, the head coach of the Somersworth Hoops team. They played a tough one at home last night against Campbell. To find out the score of that game and all the other action from around the Granite State, here is Dave Haley with our scoreboard. Scoreboard brought to you by our friends at the New Hampshire Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement and their Buyers Beware program, reminding all adults it's against the law to provide alcohol to minors, even when the family is gathered around the holiday tree. Don't pass around the bottle, folks.
Yeah.
I know it might be tradition, but it is against the law. It's just not good. Don't do it.
I love you always add new scenarios for buying booze for kids every time. It's good. It kind of keeps it fresh and interesting.
That's why they keep sponsoring the program.
I love it. We appreciate it very much. Scoreboard, again, late night last night. A lot of games were played on Thursday that we touched upon and we'll do again here in the second hour. But one game in Division I last night, Manchester Memorial goes to 3-0 with a 60-53 win at Timberlane last night. In Division II, 2 big games last night. One that Pete Terry and John Kesty were at, and we've got video of this game on NHSportsPage.com as we speak. Souhegan with a come-from-behind 74-65 win over Goffstown. First win of the season for Souhegan. Pembroke travels to Portsmouth and beats the defending champions 76-59. Patrick Welch with 36 points in that game. He's now averaging 31.3 points per game, and I'm very confident in stating he is the leading scorer in the state thus far. I'm going to have the scoring leaders on the site next week. We'll update that. Pelham got a nice win last night. They beat a 2-0 Lebanon team, and Matt Cowles, the big guy for Lebanon, is back. He had 19, but wasn't enough. Matt Regan's team with a 58-46 win over Lebanon, first loss of the season again for Lebanon. Hollis Brookline is also undefeated, 57-40 over St. Thomas in that game. Moving to Division III, the game I was at last night that we'll talk about further with Coach Lucas. Campbell with a 54-47 win over Somersworth. That was 2 undefeated teams coming in. Conant with a 63-46 win at Hopkinton. That's a good Hopkinton team, but Conant, as I've said, is again, I think would be a top 3 or 4 team in Division II this season. They're that loaded. And the game of the night, and the game that has people all over the place. You'll be in a mall shopping. You're going to be with family and friends, and people are going to be talking about this. Guilford is undefeated, 62. The alma mater 62-49 over Newfound, 4-0 on the season, and I believe that they are now trying to schedule Duke in the second half of the year, just to kind of a measuring stick.
And Coach K is a little nervous.
He may be.
He's like
man-to-man defense in Guilford.
As long as Dave Haley's not playing, then I'll play you guys.
It's not about me. It's about the team. It's about the alma mater. So that late night, there's the scoreboard for you, but a light night, mostly the Division I games and Division IV games were played on Thursday evening.
I want to talk about the game that I was at last night, Sauhegan High School in Amherst. Sauhegan went into the game 0-2, taking on a team in Goffstown, my new hometown. Yeah, I moved out of Nashua many, many years ago. I've been living in Goffstown for the past 6-7 years. Goffstown came in at 2-0. They had beaten Brady earlier in the week in Concord.
That's a good win.
That was a good win. And Goffstown, another one of those teams where it's a broadcaster's nightmare. All right, so you said we had the video highlight package on the show. I did my best with the play-by-play. I was sick all week. You could probably tell my voice sounds a little, crappy right now. So I tried to battle through it and do a little play-by-play for the highlights because I think it adds a lot. But a broadcaster's nightmare. One, a team that does not provide a roster. And I emailed Steve Fountain, the athletic director at Goffstown High School, on a couple of occasions over the past couple of weeks and didn't get one. So I said, I'll go to the game at Sauhegan. Hopefully they have a roster there. Of course, no. They didn't send the roster to Sauhegan either. So I went there blind. Not having seen the team. And then what do you get?
And they play 10 guys.
You got it. And what they do is, Justin Gorham, the head coach, he has 5 guys out there. Then all of a sudden, halfway through the quarter, here comes 5 more guys that you don't know, that you don't have a roster for. But I went to the scorers book and I got down their names and their numbers. I had no idea what grade they were. I had no idea how tall they were. So I'm just working with it with like that. So that was a little bit tough. But good game. I mean, Goffstown, they like to run and gun.
Yeah.
Jake Mount is a tremendous player, had 30 points in the game. It was really a mano battle for a little while between him and Brandon Len. Everybody knows about Brandon Len.
Sure.
And Len didn't start the game, but he came off the bench and scored 11 points in the first half, ended up with 26 in the game, but it was him and Mount kind of like going shot for shot for a while. It was pretty cool, and it was a very, very, very entertaining basketball game.
Did he told me when I talked to him that he wasn't going to be as strict with the 5 in, 5 out. He said he would do that, but he said that he felt like there were times last year he didn't have enough scoring on the floor, or that his best players weren't playing enough over the course of the entire game. And he said that, he may keep a kid like Jake Mount or Rob White, who I know didn't have a great night last night, but he's been scoring about 17 a game for him. Did he keep doing that the whole game, 5 in, 5 out?
It wasn't like, here's 5, you guys are playing. Because originally when he started doing this a couple of years ago, when he took over as the coach, they were looking to score 100 points a game. It was Loyola Marymount type of basketball, except they were bringing a fresh 5 guys every 4 minutes, always keeping it fresh. It wasn't exactly like that. I mean, but there were wholesale substitutions taking place throughout the game. But you're right, Jake Mount did play a lot of minutes. You mentioned the kid Rob White, who must have missed about 10 3-pointers in the game, and finally hit one late in the game. So I felt good for him. Brad Chapdelaine was a starting guard along with Mount. I mean, they're really just a bunch of guards. Like I said, they didn't have the height. Well, they didn't have a roster, so I couldn't tell how tall these guys were. So my comparison was Jake Kennedy's 6'5" for Sauhegan and huge, a big monster.
Yeah.
And we had a post-game interview with him and Brandon Len, me in between them. I like the big guys next to me because it makes me look a little bit smaller. But I was comparing everybody to Jake Kennedy, and Goffstown had no one even in the neighborhood as far as size.
And that's why he runs. I mean, he's got a kid. He does in the preseason. Each kid is expected to run a 6-minute mile, and they do that. That's the day before. It's leading up to the first practice of the year.
Is it like that Patriots conditioning run, which you see all these guys fail to run and they can't practice until they pass it?
I asked him when I talked to him. I said, we talked for a while, and he said, yeah. He said, no, we did fine. He said they had one kid who barely missed it, and then he came around and did it the second time. But they run 6-minute miles. So that's speed. Those kids can run, and he just had mentioned to me he wanted to make sure he had his best scores. I think it's like an all-star game. I saw Winnicott against Pinkerton in their opener, and Jay McKenna is doing the same kind of style. And I think it's like an all-star game where you want to get everyone in and you do keep everyone fresh, but then for the last 5-6 minutes, you go with your best 5 or your best 6 interchangeable guys, and you get the W there.
Well, Mount is a very impressive player. I mean, had a bunch of threes in the game. Let's see. He had 6 threes in the game by my count here. Just quick math off my scorebook that I did. He can score in a variety of different ways. Very good free throw shooter, but especially on the perimeter, that three-point shot is great. What I love about Brandon Len, very unselfish.
Yeah.
He's not playing point guard this year. He's playing more of a 2 guard. They had a kid, Tanner Kent, playing a little bit of the point. A.J. Hayes, the kid who transferred from BG, didn't really get playing time at Girton, but he's playing some solid minutes for Souhegan. They were without Tyler Ford and Zach Simmons. I think Simmons is probably their second best player behind Brandon Len. Very good scorer.
Ford's right there too.
Ford is good too, but I really like Zach Simmons' game. Both of those guys missed the game last night with an injury, so they're starting kids that I had never heard of. They started a kid named Matt Siegel at forward, not the Kiss 108 jock, the morning show
not
guy.
That guy,
not Matty in the morning.
No.
Different Matt Siegel. Spells his last name a little differently. I mean, Kennedy started. Matt Protzman, Josh Eisel. I mentioned Tanner Kent, and then Siegel, and they brought Len off the bench. But Len, he can shoot. Flat out can shoot. He can penetrate to the basket and finish, and he's also a tremendous passer. I mean, he must have had like 3 or 4 passes that he just laid down to a wide open Kennedy, and Kennedy just, he's a lineman, all right? He doesn't have the hands that a wide receiver has, and he's just spectacular. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Rondo with some of the stuff he does in terms of the fancy passes.
Did you say you brought him off the bench?
Yeah, he didn't start the game.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, look, Mike Heaney always has a lot of different starting rotations. Whenever I see him, and I didn't bother to ask him after the game.
He might have missed a practice.
Who knows? I mean, maybe he just wanted some scoring punch off the bench. Figured, hey, let's bring him in, and it ended up working because Souhegan won the game. And Brandon Len, you heard a lot of talk over the summer. He scored 50 in one of those BST games.
He did, yeah.
He can score in bunches. Had a bunch of threes in the game, and had 2 spectacular plays, at least 2 of them, where he saved the ball from going out of bounds. One of them was on the baseline under his own basket, and he was able to save it with a 2-handed, reverse pass. I don't know how he did it, but right to a teammate who laid it in. I'm sure we got that on the highlight, John, and on the nhsportspage.com package from last night. And he had another one, falling out of bounds on the sideline, and he just flipped it back and saved it to one of his teammates. I mean, this kid makes stuff happen. He's a real good player.
Well, yeah, he started at point guard at Durham as a sophomore. When they lost, they lost in the semifinals to Portsmouth, and Kamal Walker hit like a 25-footer.
Yeah, at the end of that game.
Yeah,
that was Gilligan was still on the team, and
Kevin Gilligan was there. Yeah,
who was the kid? The guard, Seth Courts.
Seth Courts, yeah, who's playing college ball now. Yeah, and that was a really good team. Boy, that was an ugly game, my goodness. But I think it was like a 41-38 kind of game. But yeah, but he's, so that kid's been playing at Durham against, top-level competition for years. And, yeah, he's a great athlete, had a great football season.
What a receiver.
And he's sort of like a hobby to him is to play football. Mike Heaney said that to me. He's like, kid's such a good athlete. He goes out and he's like, boom, he has like 600 yards receiving,
And like 20 interceptions. He had a bunch of interceptions, early in the season as a defensive back too. So he's a tremendous player, a lot of fun to watch. If you haven't seen him play and you got some time a lot of people are on vacation, myself included. I'm on vacation, but I'm like working all week. Everybody's like, hey, Pete, what are you doing here? You're on vacation. Well, I never get to take a vacation.
I would love to be able to go to these games. I got to work.
So Souhegan's actually playing in the tournament. They're playing Alvern, the opening game on Thursday, 3 o'clock at Nashua South. Alvern and Souhegan. That's a pretty good matchup to open up the tournament.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I tell you, with Hollis Brookline being very good now and Souhegan, I picked them number 2 preseason. I still think they'll be top 4 by the end of the year. It's an excellent tournament, and South is terrific.
I had to go to a guy who really knows those teams, and I saw Joe Marcellina from the Telegraph.
Yeah,
and
Joe's great.
NH-highschoolsports.com.
Yeah, good friend of ours. Yeah,
good guy. Saw him at the game, and I said, Joe, tell me. I said, Dave's telling me Hollis is really good this year. You see these guys. Are they good? He said, you know what? They're good. They got really good guards.
Really good guards. Connor Walsh and PJ Flom.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing Hollis Brookline play.
Coaches. I picked them number 4, and I know you said you were surprised by that. It was coaches constantly telling me, like, Dave, they're top 4. They're top 4. Jim Mulvey told me, he's like, they're definitely top 4. We're going to talk about the game I went to?
We're going to talk about that next, because you know
you
what?
in Division 3, man.
Speaking of coaches, we got one coming up. Lauren Lucas,
one of the best.
From Somersworth, he'll talk about the loss last night against Campbell.
It's early.
It was a home loss for the Toppers. We'll find out how it went down and how good Tyler Kretschmar is as a basketball player.
Yeah, we'll talk.
We'll find out, and how good Greg Kretschmar is as a, what did I call him, Yahoo football dad when we had him on?
He's very quiet. Is
he a Yahoo basketball dad too?
He's going to let me use his pictures. He said, photo credit? I said, of course. I'm always throwing his name out there.
All right, it is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. Pete Terrier, Dave Haley, NHSportsPage.com. Coming back with Lauren Lucas from Somersworth next. Well, welcome back to the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. You can hear it each and every Saturday morning between 7 and 9 a.m. on 2 fine stations here in the Granite State. WGIR AM 610 out of Manchester, Nashua, Concord, our flagship station. Also a Seacoast affiliate, Crystal Clear FM station for you in the area of our next guest, the head coach of the Somersworth Toppers basketball team. Lauren Lucas joins us. Coach Lucas, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
We're doing pretty well. Obviously, you'd probably be doing better with a victory last night in that game against Campbell at your home gym. 54-47 was the final. Is that a good litmus test for you guys early in the season, kind of going against one of the better teams in the division and figuring out where you guys sit?
Yeah, you know, it really was. And sometimes a loss at this point in the season isn't a horrible thing. You know, we played really well on Tuesday night at Prospect. We only had 8 turnovers in that game and really executed and played well. But the 3 previous games, we played awful and won by 30. So, you can tell the kids they have to take care of the ball, you have to get better, but you keep winning and winning, and they look at you like you're out of your mind. So when you lose, you get a little more credibility, by telling the kids what they need to do. So, you never want to lose, and we didn't want to lose to Campbell, but, at this juncture, it was okay.
Lauren, you said something interesting to me after the game, and I wanted you to kind of explain more about it now. You said something to the effect of, I felt like Campbell won the game this summer, and I think you were speaking to the fact that these kids do play a lot in the summer. Not that your kids don't, but they've gotten better. I saw Campbell last year, Max Gavia, their point guard. You can tell that these kids have been in the gym and working, and just kind of explain what you meant by that comment.
Well, I think the area they're in, they can play in a very good summer league, which they do. And where we are, unfortunately, Somersworth doesn't let us in the gym after July 1st. So we have to go traveling around looking for places to play. We play outside. I've begged and begged since I've gotten there, but for whatever reason, they don't let anybody in because they have to redo all the floors, I guess, at the same time. So unfortunately, that's what happens, and it's not that my kids don't want to, but they come to everything I ask them to go to. We just don't have the opportunities that I think Campbell does.
Coach Lauren Lucas from Somersworth is our guest on the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. And Coach Dave has been giving me grief for as long as I've known him, the last 3-4 years, about my affinity for Division I and Division II hoops, and the fact that I don't give, the lower divisions, and I say lower, with the air quotes, Division III and Division IV. Look, it's no disrespect to Division III or Division IV. It's just I focus on what I know, what I'm comfortable with. But I'm hoping you can maybe sell me and some of the audience that we have here that are also kind of like me and like the upper divisions. What is it about Division III and Division IV that we're missing?
I think a couple things. I think, I came up from Mass, and I think Mass and probably those upper divisions, there are so many sport-specific kids. I think Division III and Division IV is one of the rare places, I think, that you can still find kids that play, multiple sports, 2-3 sports, like, we did when we were kids. I think it has that. I think it has teams like Conant, it amazes me when I tell people, talk about Conant, that there are a lot of people that have no idea what I'm even talking about. You're talking about a program that just has continued to be successful year after year, and won something like 5 or 6 championships in a row until we finally knocked them off and won 2 years ago. It's very good competitive basketball. I think Dave, who was there last night, may tell you, like, the Campbell fight. The Campbell game, Campbell fight, looked like a rock fight at one point. There were so many turnovers, and everyone was throwing the ball all over the place. But really good competition. Teams are evenly matched in a lot of ways. Dave said Guilford's 4-0.
That's right.
But that shows. Teams. There are. I think we have 26 teams in Division III now. I think we're coming like the NFL. But I think it's competitive, and it's good basketball.
So I wrote about in the game article, and I was confused by it. The Drew Francoeur mystery fourth foul, which I don't think has occurred yet, but it was in the book. I'll explain it real quick, but then I want to hear, because it changed your game plan. What happened in the game, Pete, is Drew Francoeur had, and Lauren, just jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. I believe he committed a third foul. Lauren was none too pleased because he slapped at a kid who was going to miss a shot. But anyway, so Lauren. It's his point guard. It's arguably his best player, and I thought he played real well in the fourth. So Lauren took him out and sat him on the bench. Well, they go into halftime, and they get a look at one of the assistants or whatnot. Lauren can pick it up from here, but they ended up giving him another foul when he was on the bench. So now he's got 4. So now Lauren had to sit him the entire third quarter, and they're down 9 at the half. They're just kind of getting their legs under him in the second. Summersworth's always a team that comes back. They wear you down. They come back on you. They never give up. And so this was huge. Drew Francoeur didn't even play the whole third, and then Lauren had to offense, defense, sub him in and out the whole fourth just to make sure he was still available. I'll let you pick it up from there, but that was a big moment.
It was. What happened was Tyler Kretschmar picked up his second, and he's 33. They must have gone over, said 33. They thought, Francoeur's a 3, and for some reason they gave him a foul. There's no way we would have kept him in the game with 3 fouls. I very rarely keep a kid in the game with 2, but at that point, there was nothing we could do. I spent about 5 minutes before I was told that, preparing, for how we were going to exploit some mismatches that Drew had, it was difficult, but things like that happen, unfortunately.
Coach, you mentioned Tyler Kretschmar, and his dad Greg, a friend of mine, colleague here at our Clear Channel radio stations in New Hampshire. I actually told Coach, I told him that you were going to come on the show when I saw Greg earlier this week, and I said I want to find out what kind of basketball dad he is and what kind of player Tyler is. I know he's a tremendous football player, playing both ways on the offensive line and defensive line for the Toppers. What kind of basketball player is Tyler Kretschmar?
He's a monster. I've had him now for 4 years. I've had him and Drew practicing with me for 4 years. So it's hard. I've seen him develop physically. I go to the works and work out, and you'll see him there almost every day hitting the weights. He's physical, he's strong, he's a good rebounder. He's a tough defender. He can finish around the basket when he gets an offensive rebound. He's not going to razzle dazzle you. We joke around. The other day he jumped out at point, and I said, come on, Tyler getting carried away here. But great kid, hard worker. I can't say enough about him. What a nice kid he is.
Since we were talking about Division III, and I know, again, you were a very successful coach over in Massachusetts before you came up here, I always ask the kids when I'm talking to them, maybe they join the Players Lounge or whatnot, what's your favorite atmosphere to play in? What's your favorite opposing gym, either to shoot in or the atmosphere? What are some of the places that I don't think you've been to Conant, but which is probably a good thing. But what are some of the places? I know Hopkinton has a pretty good atmosphere, but you've been to some pretty good gyms. Like, what are some of the places that kind of you remember in your first 3-4 years here?
Best one by far is Berlin. I mean, you go up there, you take a 3-hour ride, you walk in, and the place is absolutely jam-packed, and they got TV going and radio going, and some guy comes out of the stands and says that he just dropped $100 on Berlin, and, they're favored by 6, and had a good bet, and then Don Picard apologizes for that guy. I mean, it's amazing. It's a great atmosphere, and, you bring up about 6 people, maybe 10, and so it's a very hostile environment. But it's great. It's fun. It's it's an exciting trip.
And Pete was asking me on the show again because Pete's been saying things in the last few weeks like, where is Lisbon? And I think I've heard of Littleton, but so I'm doing the best I can, Lauren. But one of the things that I really enjoy about Division III and Division IV is they're smaller towns, obviously. So the people that live there don't leave there. The coaches are there longer, is what I mean. I think Eric Saucier is going to be a Conant for a very long time. Dave Chase. I think Dave Chase coaches 9 sports at Hopkinton. He's like the baseball coach, and he does everything over there. Hopefully, you're going to be over there for a while. It's in Division IV, it's the same way. These guys stay there a long time, and you really see the personality. You're a pretty intense guy on the sidelines, but your team takes on that persona. They get after it, and they're scrappy. Nobody enjoys playing you guys because it's such a tough game. But I think that's one of the things, too, is you get so many coaches that have been there so long that it's really their... Don Picard's a great example. That's his program at Berlin, and they really... He's such a smart guy, but his demeanor's kind of calm during games. He's not, and they kind of don't get rattled because of, what I mean? I think that's another thing I enjoy about that level, Division III and Division IV.
I totally agree with you. And they've been very accepting of me. I mean, I think I've only been here for 5 years, and you can tell a lot. Like you said, a lot of these guys have been there forever, and been around their programs forever. I think it's great basketball.
Coach, what are you guys doing for the holiday? Are you playing in a tournament starting after Christmas?
We do. We play in the York tournament. It's great for us. I think we've played it. This will be our 4th year. I think we've won maybe 1-2 games. But we play York High School. Typically, Marshwood was in it. They're no longer in it. Dover took their place. They usually bring a team up from Mass. That's always very competitive, Watertown or Marblehead or whatever, and it just prepares us. That even the year we won the championship, we won 1 game, but we were down 22 halfway through the 3rd quarter, but we came storming back with our full court defense, and I think Dave wrote actually in an article when we beat Conant in a great overtime game 2 years ago. I brought that up. We can come back, guys. We were down in the 4th quarter, and we did. So it really helps prepare us for the rest of the year.
All right, Coach. Well, I've committed to go to some Division III games this year, and I have seen Division III basketball. I've actually, been over to SNU, when you guys have the Final Four there, which is awesome. I mean, they put on a great tournament, great atmosphere. I mean, the fans, the entire town coming out to the game. You don't get that in Division I or Division II unless it's a championship game.
Right.
But there was one game on your schedule, and I know you're probably looking at, whatever you got in that York tournament, but you're probably really focusing on Bow on January 2nd and taking on Lucas Croto's team. But if there's one game on your schedule this year that you'd say, Pete Terrier, you should be at that game to get the real true feel of D3, what game would that be?
Well, if you want to drive up to Berlin,
that's not happening.
You can hop on our bus and come up with us. I guarantee it's going to be a Friday night.
Krejci will be there.
It'll be a packed house.
If Curtis Arsenal was still playing, I might consider it.
He's got a brother, Levi. He's got a freshman brother. There's another Arsenal.
I know Justin McIsaac said he may take the trip, so you could hop in with him. I think easier for you would probably be when we go to Campbell.
All right.
We're going to be at Campbell. I think that would be another great game. I think it will.
And I think that's the Friday before the Super Bowl. So hopefully I can catch a little Summersworth at Campbell and Litchfield, and then Patriots against whoever in the Super Bowl on that Sunday.
Well, I'm planning on seeing the Pats there, too. So, yeah, absolutely.
All right, Lauren. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Take it easy on Tyler Kretschmar for us. Do a favor for Greg.
And just for a second, his dad's, Greg's great. I mean, he does everything. His wife, Val, as far as a booster, and they're unbelievable parents, very supportive of everything I've done. I can't say enough about them.
Well, he's going to miss it when Tyler's graduated and there's no more games. He was telling me, especially during football season, he's like, Pete, he's like, it's coming to an end here. He was getting misty-eyed. So I know the same thing's going to be happening when, late February and early March start rolling around. He's going to realize that, I don't know if Tyler plays baseball or anything, but I know he's kind of realizing that his son's going to be graduating high school soon. It's a pretty big moment for that family.
Well, I told him I'll find him a 6'6" kid to move into his house. He'll feel it. Maybe a kid from Charlestown or something.
Thanks, Coach. Have a good holiday, okay?
All right. Thank you. You too.
Thanks, Lauren.
All right. That was a lot of fun, Dave. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm telling you, he's one of the best. He's one of the best coaches. And seeing them win that championship game a couple of years ago, the Summersworth people come out, man, to Southern New Hampshire. They had a huge crowd. They were loud.
Sounds like a good game for me. Summersworth at Campbell, Friday, February 1st.
Campbell's good. They're gonna compete in that tournament, this holiday tournament. They'll do well. They got Max Gavia is a very excellent point guard for them. They got a couple of good. Josiah Wade's on that team.
We got to take a break. We'll come back and we'll wrap up the show. Actually, we got a couple of segments to go here, Dave. I was looking to get some Christmas shopping done. You can take the final 15 minutes or so of the show, right?
Done. I'll go solo. We'll talk about Guilford.
I can head over to Jared and get my wife some Pandora or something like that. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show, WGIR AM 610 and 96.7. High School Hoop Show. Final couple of segments of this. Well, it's not the final show of 2012. We still got another show. Next week when we're here, it'll be the 29th, so we'll have one more show in 2012. But I call this the 2013 basketball season as far as I'm concerned.
I'm getting there.
When I save the roster in my computer, it says Souhegan High School basketball 2013. I don't worry too much about 2012. But I think what you can learn early in the season, and you take that into those holiday tournaments, you start getting a look at what some of these teams have. I think you're, as a coach right now, developing your rotation and seeing who it is that you can count on, and you kind of work. You got a few games that's sort of like a dress rehearsal, and then you got an even more glorified dress rehearsal in these holiday tournaments, and then the real season gets underway right after the holiday, right after the new year.
These tournaments are really big for Division III and Division IV because a lot of those kids, as Lauren kind of touched upon, a lot of these kids were soccer players, and so or football players, so they haven't been playing basketball for too long. You know what I mean? They're still getting into it and so forth, and I think having 3 games in 3 days really helps these programs a lot. The other thing, going back to something you were talking about with Queen City. Here's another issue I have with the Queen City tournament. You remember 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years, might have been 3 years ago, when Memorial went to the championship game there, and Mike Fitzpatrick, they got to and you remember Matt Kuchar, the point guard from Memorial? I think he didn't even play in the final. They get to the final, and then he rested 3 starters.
Yeah, he rested a bunch of guys.
So it's
and they got destroyed by whoever it was they played.
I think it was Trinity, but it's they didn't even play anybody, and I'm not faulting him. It's his team, he can do what he wants, but that's what people have problems with the Thanksgiving football games because, are they? We went to one where definitely both teams were after it, Central and Trinity. But I think that's another issue is how hard it. I know most people are going for it, but when something like that happens, it kind of takes a little luster off it.
Well, if you're in the NBA, you get fined now for that stuff. Look at the Spurs.
I know.
They got fined big.
The Celtics haven't been showing up either. But
I know, which is a whole nother talk show.
I'll pay attention when they start paying attention.
Well, Christmas Day, they're playing the Brooklyn Nets. I think they'll show up for that game, so I'm looking forward to that.
That's usually the game they don't. I mean, none of them want to be there.
I think the Celtics usually show up on nationally televised games.
Yeah.
Let's look at the matchups in that Queen City Invitational. It's the 50th. A nice story by Jim Fennell, and props to my boy Tommy Amin, who I know listens to the show.
Tommy Amin, yes.
He is.
Notre Dame fan.
He always sends me the stats, although Tom, you didn't send me stats this year. He always sends me like updated stats every single year.
Yep.
So there's your reminder, Tom. Send me some stats, please.
He's on it.
And I'll get the rundown of who's still, and I can tell Chris Schneider whether or not he's still on the list after last year's tournament. Exeter Goffstown. So I get to see Goffstown again, and I get my first look at Exeter this year.
Goffstown might win that game. Yeah.
Goffstown might win that game. I think they're going to be challenged against some of the size of Exeter, but that'll be a good test for both teams. Merrimack Bedford. Well, we just saw that game on Thursday night. And Bedford blew out Merrimack. It's a rematch at the second game of the tournament. That game's slated to tip at about 4:30.
Fitzy returns to Manchester Memorial.
That will be interesting.
That will be interesting.
Yeah, because the tournament played at Memorial High School. The big one of the night, Trinity Central. That's the game that John and I will do video highlights for on nhsportspage.com. And then you got Weston Memorial in the nightcap of that game. But to me, the Trinity Central game, that's the one that I have the most interest in personally.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's one of the top rivalries in the entire
That's going to be the game with the biggest crowd.
Oh, yeah.
The most buzz about that game.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of new faces on that Trinity team. And they're all playing pretty well early on.
But isn't it a shame? Well, I mean, look at it. You figure whoever wins that game will probably take on Memorial in that next round, the semifinals. The way they have these things bracketed is so there's going to be definitely a Manchester team in the finals. That's the way it's set up. But Trinity Central winner against the winner of West Memorial, you got to figure that's going to be Memorial against the winner of the Trinity Central game.
Yeah,
you don't give West a big chance in that game, do you?
No,
and I haven't seen West yet this year.
No, I don't give. West is struggling early on. They haven't. They've been off. I think a lot of people thought Joe Burrow was going to come back, and he didn't. And so that was a big loss for them. And I mean, Nolan Flynn's there; he's a good player. But no, Memorial is clicking early on. And as I talked about, those are basketball players. Those guys play year round. Those kids at Memorial, so they're one sport athletes mostly. So
what's the team? I know Dover's not in the tournament this year, but who's the other team that's out of the tournament that has been in the past? Off the top of your head, Bo. That's right. Okay, Bo has been in it.
And Bo's not. They're a halfway decent Division III team.
Yeah,
they can't compete.
So it's good new blood with Bedford in there and Goffstown in there. I think, and it's again local. And to me, I like being able to knock off 8 teams in one day, basically just see all those games and get you a good idea of what they got. All right, we'll take a break, come back, we'll wrap up the show, try and find out what you got me for Christmas, Dave.
I can't wait to unveil it. It's going to get emotional.
WGIR AM 610 and 96.7 The Win. Final 5 minutes or so of our pre-Christmas New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. Pete Terrier along with Dave Haley of nhsportspage.com. John Casty from the website in here filming it with that beautiful new camera. I think John purchased himself a pre-holiday gift. And I just watched a little bit of the highlight package from that Sauhegan Goffstown game.
Yeah.
It made me look much thinner. You know how they say
there you go.
the camera adds
Merry Christmas
15
to you.
pounds?
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Well, also, I was sick all week, so I lost about 7 pounds because I didn't eat.
The first time I saw myself on film for that Plymouth Trinity game that John and I did, oh, my God, I think I ran 7 miles on the treadmill. I'm like, I do not look like that.
I told you the story, Dave. Me and Dave were actually supposed to, go to the Dave Matthews show Wednesday night.
Yeah.
So I called Dave like 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday and say, Dave, you got to find yourself another date because I am dog sick and I cannot make this show. And I love Dave Matthews. 2 bands I love in this world more than anything, Pink Floyd and the Dave Matthews Band. And I was fortunate enough to see Pink Floyd twice when they were still touring back in the day. Not with Roger Waters. I'm not that old. But I've seen Dave Matthews play about 20 times.
Oh, that meant so you like my sisters. My sisters, I told you, are in the club.
I'm in the warehouse or whatever it's called.
They're
fan
in that
club.
Yeah,
and I love Dave Matthews, and it killed me to not go to that show. But I was okay with it until last night. I had a promotion for our sister station, Rock 101. It was an end of the world party, and what do you know? We all survived. We all survived. So they had this great band, D3, I think they were called, playing out at the Postoloff in Milford. And they played this like back-to-back Dave Matthews, real jamming tunes. And I was just getting into it. And afterwards, oh, man, depression set in. I was like, oh, I missed the show.
And I got in a luxury box.
And Dave goes there with the tickets and ends up in some high roller luxury box.
That's right. I know people. I'll tell you the quick story. So I went out with my sister and her husband beforehand. I was meeting buddies there, and I ended up going to our seats. Or I was going to, and then they were in the luxury box right there. So I was talking to them over the railing, and the lights went down, and the security guy, the old guy, he goes, "You got to get to your seat." I said, "All right." He goes, "Or get somebody to invite you in that luxury box." And I said, "They already did." And he goes, "Well, why aren't you in there?" And I said, "I thought you'd get mad at me." He goes, "I don't care." So I just jumped over the railing, and boom, I was in there.
You know, I've been working for Clear Channel, you know, on and off for the past 20 years. So we've always had a luxury box at the Verizon Wireless Arena.
I didn't know they had them there.
This year we don't have one. And I go to a lot of Monarchs games. I got young kids, and you know, we just got. Hope my son's not listening, but in his stocking, he's going to find tickets to the New Year's Eve game. They do the indoor fireworks and all that.
Oh, good.
And we've always been able to go in the box because you know my younger son Ryan, who's almost 3, he just does not sit still, and he doesn't watch hockey like my son Zach, who's almost 5, does. He'll watch every single game. Daddy, did you see that? And that guy did this and that. You know, he's going to be, you know, a sportscaster like me probably at some point. But you know, it's killing me not having that luxury box. You know, the company, you know, has always had it, and it's just been a great situation.
It was nice. It was Cross Insurance Agency. My dad owns one of the Cross Insurance Agency, insurance companies. So
he does.
They gave him a big check a few years ago. So yeah, he's up in Laconia. So yeah, so it was Cross Insurance, and then I know Chris Sharp is one of the guys who's he's like a vice president there, or president there. So
you got to roll high roller.
I know the right kind of people. That's all. But it was good. Dave Matthews is great, man. He just
don't tell me you partied with Dave and you know the rest of the band. Did Boyd Tinsley, who plays the violin, did he just tear it up?
Yeah, he tear it up.
He is a god.
Dave Matthews seemed to really enjoy saying Manchester. He go Manchester over and over again, and I was sort of like, is he trying to remember where he is? But I tell you, it was sold out. It was absolutely.
He's played there before.
He has.
When I went to see him there a few years ago, they actually had seats. You know, it was like an open stage, so I was sitting behind the stage. But there was no like back to the stage, so you could just see them playing. Now, a lot of times, you know, you were just watching their back, but it was still great just being in the building.
Ask me what the last concert I saw there was.
What was the last concert before? It was a country concert or something?
Motley Crue.
Motley Crue.
They were they were fantastic.
Oh,
the 9th time I've seen them.
So I'm gonna get you the 80s hair band mixtape. That's gonna be your Christmas.
I already
gift
got it all. I got Hair Nation on satellite radio. I've got on my iPod. I've got over 700 hair metal songs.
Wow.
700.
You gotta build. I had like a docking station on iHeartRadio last year that I created, custom station.
Yeah.
Hey, that's all the time we have, guys. I want to thank you just for everything so far this year, and as we head towards next year and the real season in the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. Just want to thank you guys, and also thank our guests who joined us. We had Lauren Lucas from Somersworth, Nate Masroll from Nashville South, for our producer Adam Furious, John Cassidy, Dave Haley from NHSportsCoach.com. I'm Pete Terrier. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Woo!